Did you ever hear tell of the drum that called spirits? Well, I'll tell you about it now. But don't blame me if your nightmares start acting up. There was once a poor woodcutter who lived deep in the woods with his family. One day he went into the forest to gather wood, but when he chopped down a tree, his axe struck something hard. He stopped to investigate and found an old iron drum. It was covered in strange symbols and was so heavy he could barely move it. But the woodcutter was desperate for materials to make a roof for his family's hut, so he left the drum where it was and went home empty-handed. When he told his wife, Martha, about the strange drum he'd found, she insisted they go back to the forest to retrieve it. Together they dragged the drum back to their little hut, and Martha cleaned it off, revealing more intricate designs than her husband had noticed before. She decided the drum must be valuable, so she set it on a stool beside the hearth and put a blanket over it. Then she put their 2 children to bed and told them a story to drive away any fears they might have of the dark. But after their eyes grew droopy and their breathing evened out, Martha got up and crept closer to the drum. Curiosity had gotten the better of her, and she wanted to see what would happen if she lifted the blanket. As soon as she did, though, the room grew cold and the blanket was pulled taut like a drumhead. Then the drum began to vibrate and a low sound echoed through the room. Startled, Martha fell backwards and knocked over a poker. It landed in the fire and a shower of sparks flew upwards, each one burning with an eerie green flame. She screamed for her husband, and together they stared in terror at the drum. Suddenly, the blanket was ripped to shreds and the air grew thick with the stench of decay. Then a spirit emerged, its ghastly form coalescing from the smoke and flames. The creature let out a blood-curdling screech that shattered the windows and clawed at the couple, knocking them to the ground and stealing their breath. Paralyzed with fear, they could only watch as the spirit rose from the drum and floated towards their beds. It reached out a gnarled hand towards the sleeping children, and Martha screamed again, this time for her children. The spirit paused, turned to face the couple, and beckoned with a finger for them to follow. Then it glided out the door and into the night, the sound of drums growing louder with every step it took. Though Martha and her husband were too afraid to move at first, eventually they got up and followed the sound of the drums deeper into the woods. They didn't know where they were going, but they couldn't stop walking. The trees thinned and the drumming grew louder until they came to a clearing. In the middle of the space was another drum, larger than the first and made from the skin of some sort of enormous beast. The air crackled with energy and the sound of drums reverberated through their bones. When the spirit approached the large drum, it began to glow with an otherworldly light. Then it raised its arms and beat upon the drum, causing the air to shimmer and warp. More spirits emerged from the light, drawn to the sound of the drums. They circled around the couple, their glowing forms taking on grotesque shapes and faces. Then they all began to march around the clearing in a circle, beating upon the drum and chanting in a language that sounded like nails on a chalkboard. Martha and her husband backed away, tripping over tree roots and fallen branches in their haste to get away. But no matter how fast they ran, the spirits were always there, their hollow eyes boring into their souls. And so it was that the 2 humans ran through the forest, forevermore pursued by the spirits and the sound of the drums that called them. Or perhaps they never ran at all, and this is just a story that old Martha tells to warn children not to wander into the woods at night.